Well, folks, how are you? Good evening. Wednesday at 8 o'clock. This is our opportunity to have our Facebook Live chat. Welcome back for some of those people that know this is the third in a series of Facebook Live chats that I've done under the hashtag Family Talk, which refers to an entire series that I have on my YouTube channel to help parents in their journey to prevent underage drinking with their children, which we're trying to share information, give you resources, and of course on a night like tonight, the opportunity to ask your questions. So just let me go over the format a little bit for you. I've got some prepared material that I want to cover. I've got 5, boom, great points for you to jot down so that you are armed and prepared when your minor comes home and you notice that they have been drinking, so you are armed and prepared for the right responses. And then we're going to open the floor to questions for you, Q&A. But please don't wait till the end of the time that I've presented material, because I want to get as many questions in. And I've got Catherine is here. Say hi, Catherine. Catherine's going to be following along, and it means that if you folks are, hey, hi, Robert, you're always so good at posting and engaging with me. It's good to see you. But the benefit of posting is we're going to be able to see the themes of the questions so that we know what is important to you, and we get those questions answered for you. And it also means that you guys can chat amongst yourselves. And in fact, I will just toss this out right now. What was the age that you first encountered your child drinking? And in fact, we just had Thanksgiving weekend, which here in Canada, that's a big holiday where often people are partying. So maybe your kids came home this last weekend and you just encountered this. So I'd be really interested to hear in your comments what age that was for your family, and hopefully for those people who are being proactive, which is what I encourage, that you're going to take away information now, because it does tend to happen earlier than one would think. So I'm going to go over those 5 points, and then after the Q&A, I want people to know that the work that we're doing with this Family Talk series is really important, and we really are trying to make a shift in parents' attitudes. So we're conducting research to see if we're being effective. So there's going to be a survey, and we are going to take the first 100 people that complete the survey, and it takes like 3 minutes. It's really fast. But the first 100 people, their names will be entered into a draw, and we've got a $250 Visa gift card to thank you for your time. And because you have to be Canadian, you have to have a kid who's a minor, I didn't want to exclude anybody from the chance to have a little bonus. So anybody who comments in our question time or throughout the chat, your name will be entered into a draw, and we'll be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card. So we really want to be here for community. We really want to thank you for your time and your engagement, and let us know that this is making a difference. That's super important to us. So without further ado, and I'm seeing the names scroll by on the screen here. I'm like, oh, I want to say hi to everybody. And some people I've like, hi, like Chantel, like I've known you for how long? And Heather, my gosh. So anyways, it's really great to see familiar faces, and welcome if you're new to this. But let me get going here with these 5 kind of PowerPoints that I want you to take away. I'm going to say what the 5 of them are, and then I'm going to go through each one and get into the details for you. And then again, we'll open the floor to questions, but please start posting. So the first thing is, if you have a minor who you discover has been drinking underage, and they come home and you are now in the moment with a drunk child or a child who's got alcohol on their breath. First thing, stay calm. We're not going to talk about it with somebody who's inebriated. Second, we're not going to punish. I'm going to tell you what to do instead. Third, we're not going to ask them the question, have you been drinking? Don't invite them to lie. Fourth, we're going to problem solve so that they do not get into that situation again. And fifth, we're going to restate our faith and move on to bygones. So that's our quick little agenda. So let me dig into this a little bit more. So first thing is about staying calm and being prepared. You think about anybody who, like a police officer, a firefighter, a nurse in emergency, the reason why you are so calm in the heat of the moment when you are, with a crisis around you, is because you're well rehearsed in what you're going to do. And one of the things in my earlier Family Talk series was about teaching your kids about how to rehearse and prepare for getting out of sticky situations where alcohol is involved, so that they've already got it rehearsed. And I'm giving you exactly the same advice, which is you got to prepare. You are going to be triggered, and again, it often happens much younger than you think. You think, oh, my kid's not going to start drinking until they get older, and it is true that underage drinking, the incident increases as they approach the legal age. But what you're going to find is you're going to think, oh, I don't need to think about this till they're 16 or 17. And the next thing you know, you got a kid in grade 5 and you're like, whoa, this has totally caught me off guard. So be prepared. It may happen earlier than you think. And so the idea behind the being calm is that I know that you're going to be shocked in the moment, and it's can be quite scary. You're lying in bed watching Outlanders, if you're me, Netflix binging, and all of a sudden your kid comes home and you're all excited because they said they'd be home by 9 o'clock and it's 9 o'clock and you think 8 to go, but then you hear them rustling in the kitchen and cans are falling off the counter and you're like, what? And you go down and here's what feels like your little baby, your little pure innocent baby, and they got the glazed eyes and they've got bad motor coordination. You can smell alcohol in their breath and you're like, oh. And so we want to freak out. We have been triggered. It is a fear reaction. And we have to realize that if we look at the way the brain works when we are in panic and fear like that, the slower, logical thinking, planning part of the brain, which is our executive functioning up here in our prefrontal cortex, it goes offline. Because in the face of fear, our evolutionary desire is to watch for, remember things that are potentially harmful and dangerous. And so we go to that more reptilian brain that is reactive, works faster in order to keep us safe. So we get that fight, flee, freeze reaction. And so we can be triggered and easily want to start screaming our typical parenting thing. And you can use this same advice for other times that you're triggered with your kids' behavior. But the thing is to catch yourself and realize that flood of emotion, you need to know and capture it. And realize that if Dan Siegel does this beautiful thing where he does the brain in the hand, and literally that prefrontal cortex goes, that's why we call it flipping our lid. Literally that prefrontal cortex goes offline, that reptilian older brain puts us into being hijacked by our limbic system and ready to go. The trick is, we're the mature adults. Just stop. Nothing good happens when you're in that. So just bite your tongue. I don't care if you taste blood, just bite your tongue. Stay calm. And what we need to do at this moment is forget about the disciplinary piece, which we're going to get to next. Right now, what we need to do is we've got an intoxicated child, and under the influence, it is not a time to be trying to get them to be thinking and planning and explaining, because that part of their brain is not functioning if there's alcohol in their blood system and they're drunk. So we're not going to have a conversation now. What we need to be thinking is, I've got a child who needs to be assessed on how much alcohol they've had and whether they're safe. So you need to be thinking, I got to put on my nurse hat. So get them to talk for a little bit just so you can see how bad things are, because if you've got a potential for needing true medical care, then you need to be putting that kid in the car and getting them to the hospital. Now, if it just looks like they're going to have a bad morning, we get them some water, rub their back, we say, looks like you've had a bit of a night. And I would tuck them in and say, we will talk about this later. That's just make the appointment to talk about it later. So we're going to wait until they have recovered, and may take them a while depending on what state they were in. But it also gives us an opportunity to calm ourselves down and to do our preparing for what that conversation is going to look like. And again, we've got more videos and more support around that conversation as well. But stay calm. Let them know we're going to talk about this later. Just be kind, empathetic, put them to bed. Being kind and being empathetic does not mean that you're not being an ineffective disciplinarian. It does not mean that you are condoning their behavior, okay? So, second thing is, don't ask, have you been drinking? Like, this is, if you know a truism, then don't set your child up to lie to you. And if you say, did you break the lamp? I didn't break the lamp. If you say, have you been drinking? Any kid who thinks that they're going to get in trouble is going to take the odds and say no. And then where are you going to go? Now you have to say you're lying to me and you're drunk. Like it goes to no good. What is much more effective, and which is going to reduce the likelihood that you move into a fight and defensiveness, is to simply be factual and descriptive. So you can just simply say, I'm noticing that your eyes are blurry. I can smell alcohol on your breath. You're having trouble with your motor coordination. You're stumbling, you're dropping things. You've been drinking. Just there it is. Just, I'm not I'm not asking you to confirm it. I'm just letting you know what I'm seeing. And even just describing the physical things, those are facts. You can just leave it at that. And so just describing. So don't ask them. Don't set yourself up to end up getting angrier at your child because of how they're squirming away from the interrogation. Just state and describe what you see. So now we're going to sit down and have this talk. And I think many parents think, my child has broken the law, my child has violated the family values, you're upset with them, you're disappointed with them. And many parents are of the mindset that the only way to prevent this from happening again, and the only safeguard against it happening again, is that we need to show them that behavior like that needs to be punished. And I will argue, and there is research that will back me up, that while I would absolutely agree that we need to take disciplinary action, I can tell you that what we have learned from research over the years, not in one or two studies, but this is well proven now, is that punishment is not effective. That in fact, when kids get punished, it hurts their opportunity for learning. Whereas when we talk about disciplining, the part of the word discipline comes from disciple, to be a teacher, that we want to help our kids learn so that they can take their learning to make different choices and change their behavior in the future. It's far more effective, and the child is not feeling badly about themselves, and you're maintaining a healthy relationship with them. Whereas if you're punishing a child, they end up fearing you, or they think you don't like them. There's all kinds of negative consequences, and it's not going to change the behavior as well as you would think. So yes to discipline, no to punishment. So we say, well, all right, well, what should the discipline be? So I'm a big believer in consequences. Which of course, again, begs the question, what's the consequences for being a minor drinking? I would say sit down with the situation with your youth and say, you know, you got yourself into some trouble here, and we need to make things right. You know, what should be the consequences? I mean, put it out to them. With teenagers, it's much easier to get them to co-create consequences with you than you imposing, which can still feel punitive to them. And so just, you know, you're just putting the conundrum out there. You know, like, what should happen now? What should be the consequence for this? And you know what you're going to find is that kids can be just like so much harder on themselves than even you would be. They might even want to start punishing themselves. And you almost have to go back and say, well, that seems pretty punitive. We're not really a punitive family. Like, I'm just, you know, how can we get the learning? How can we make things right? And let's go back and look at what consequences they may already have faced. Maybe they are sitting there with that cracking headache and feeling sick to their stomach and end up missing half a day of some other activity because of the effects of alcohol, and they feel lousy. So that's a consequence. That's an opportunity to learn. I didn't like how I felt. I feel terrible. I missed out. I feel terrible. Another consequence might be that they did something embarrassing while they were under the influence, and now they're, you know, embarrassed about their behavior. And worse, in this day and age, it might have been captured on social media, in which case now they're scrambling to take pictures down or worry about if things went viral or who was going to see them. You know, the fact that when you probably started this conversation with them, if they were kind of head down, sheepishly walking in, that's a real indication that they are feeling badly. That is a consequence, that they know that they have hurt their reputation, you know, with their parents. That remorse is showed in their body language there. So there are those consequences anyways. So don't think that your kids, you know, it's not like consequences are you got to go out and wash the car. That's not a logical consequence. That's really a hidden kind of punishment. So how do we right the wrongs? You know, how do we need to go back to social and take things down? Are there people that we need to apologize to? You know, that's that reparation piece that's an important part of discipline, and really holding on to that learning and understanding why our worry, why our concern. You know, if we need to, again, show them this video series and, you know, explain to them how the young brain is still developing and why alcohol is contraindicated to the growing brain and things like that. So Just do a research paper, would you please, on the human brain and alcohol? That's a logical consequence there. Maybe we haven't done enough to educate them. And then I think the next piece is, again, if we're looking at discipline as being a learning model, and you've got a minor who drank, then they got themselves into some kind of a sticky situation, and I don't want them just simply to say, I won't do it again. Because that's, they haven't told me that they could see another route around their choice of course of action. So I want to go through that again. And say, okay, so, you're at a party, you're in the bush party, and somebody starts passing around a bottle. You took a drink. Now you're facing me. What's going to happen when the bottle comes around? What can you say to decline and feel good about yourself, feel that you're saving face with your peers? Do you have a rebut that makes you feel okay? Is it that it's, if you're running with people who drank and the peer pressure is too strong, then, do we need to increase your social sphere? Because there's all kinds of youth. In fact, we know now that the numbers are improving. The majority of minors do not drink underage. So I don't know what gets romanticized in movies and music videos, but the truth of the matter is there's tons and tons of kids who know how to have a great time on a Friday night and on a Thanksgiving weekend, and it does not need to involve alcohol. So where are those people? If that's going to be easier, then, hang out with those friends. Then the whole matter is going to be moot if peer pressure is part of what is the problem. If it's a matter of camouflaging it. Could you go to the party and take a soda and lime, and what do they know whether or not there's vodka in it or not? If you want to dress it up and nobody needs to know. So work with them to find out what's the sticky point for them, and then come up with something else so that they've really got some learning to take forward and they can get out of that tricky situation the next time. So that's problem solving for the future. And then I think this is a really important part that parents forget, which is, and again, not just with drinking, but just generally when kids mess up. Kids are going to make mistakes. That's how you learn. You want your kid to be a good mistake maker. Part of learning for you to help them be a good mistake maker is we need to be able, once we've got all that part figured out, is to be able to clean the slate and say bygones. If you don't say bygones, if you aren't willing to reinstate your trust to your child and to say that I have faith in you now that we've gone through this, really what you're saying is, I don't trust you. I have low expectations for your behavior. And now you got a kid who says, I haven't even done anything. And they're thinking of me as being guilty. And if your parents already think you're guilty and the bottle's going around, well, why wouldn't you just continue to act badly? They already have a bad impression of you. So you're setting yourself up when you don't say bygones. I completely trust you. I have faith in you. Oh yes, go out to that party. We've already discussed how you're going to handle yourself, and I have trust that you'll uphold the family values and not break the law. And we've talked about that and have a great time. Bygones. We don't be is it going to be another night like that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that is not going to change kids' behavior. It is more likely to push them in the wrong direction. So being able to have a clean slate is what allows people to truly make different choices, to not get anchored down with a reputation that they can't shake. And it's very freeing. It's very freeing. And if you want to encourage kids to say, mistakes happen, you learn from your mistakes, and you move on, then you've got to live that. You've got to live that in your attitudes with them. And I'll tell you something. When you talk to kids and you say, why didn't you drink? What was the thing that made you say no instead of yes when the bottle went around? And they will say, I did not want to disappoint my parents. So when we have a healthy, trusting, intimate relationship with our kids, where they know that it's safe to tell us their truth, when we can help them with the challenges of the youth years, which are very challenging, and they feel like we have their back and that we're understanding, and yet still being a good disciplinarian, you can be a friendly, firm disciplinarian, holding those expectations, reinforcing our family values. Those kids will want you to have a high opinion of them, and they will move in line with your expectations. So hold good expectations. And that's what that trust and faith shows. And kids do not want to lose that. They do not want to lose that at all. So show that. That power of the relationship is really super important. So those are my 5 points, right? You got them? This is all going to be archived if you need to go back and review them. But I want to move on to your questions so we can shape the conversation in the ways that are interesting to you. And I hope some people did put down what age. Are they saying what age? Some?
Lots of questions.
Lots of questions. Okay.
Post the survey link.
Yeah. So let me just recap. Some people jumped in after I'd already given my open preamble. So I just want to restate for people that because we are doing research to see if this has been helpful and we want your feedback, there is a short survey. It'll take 3 minutes of your time. But if you'd help us so much, we want to thank you for that. By the first 100 people that complete the survey, your name will go in a draw. We will give you a random picking, and someone will get a $250 Visa gift card. Yay! And because you have to be Canadian, you have to have kids who are minors, and we want to be inclusive. Anyone who posts a comment or a question, your name will also be drawn, and we're giving away a $50 Amazon gift card. So please take advantage of those great offerings. So now we're going to post the survey link, so that's all there. And Catherine, what are people asking? I'm so curious.
Okay. Elaine wants to know, what can we do to make sure that our teens are safe when they go out?
Which kind of safe? Again, it depends on which kind of hazard that you're concerned about. And I think really we don't know what choices our kids are going to make when they are out of our supervision. And of course, as they get older, we supervise them less. We still need to know their friends. We still need to know their plans. We need to stay in touch with our phones and texts and all those things. But the truth is, they are going to go out and they're going to have to decide, am I going to get in that car with that person who's been driving? Am I going to, go to this party where the parents aren't home and things could get out of hand? And we want them to make good choices. And the only way that we know that they are going to make good choices is if we have had conversations with them about what are potential concerns, about where things could potentially go wrong. And again, to do that education and that rehearsal in a non-judgmental way. And when they're educated, and when we tell them that we trust them to make good choices when they're out in the big world, that's what keeps them safe. What keeps them safe is our good, healthy relationship and that education piece. And so many parents are afraid that if I talk about it, they're going to do. If I talk about sex, they're going to start having sex. If I talk about drinking, they're going to start drinking. It's not true. The conversation around alcohol can start very, very young. The first time a kid picks up a beer bottle thinking that everyone else has got one in their hand, I'll take a swig. You can just, no, actually, that's alcohol. That's for adults. That's not for children. There you go. First lesson, 4 years old. So, it's a conversation that you have bit by bit and over time, and the younger you have it, the more kind of curious it is, because they're not drinking yet, so they're like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of cool. But if you only bring up alcohol when they're 17, they're gonna be like, what? Why are you in my face? Why are we talking about this now? What are you saying? Much more likely to be defensive. So anyways, I hope that's helpful. Yeah, go ahead, Catherine. I'm having a sip of my coffee.
My son is 11. When should I start talking to him about drinking?
Now. Absolutely. One of the ways that you can talk about it is to just say, like, hey, have you noticed anybody in your cohort or anyone drinking on the schoolyard? Is anyone bringing bottles to school? Because they're less likely to say, I'm drinking, but they might very well say, hey, you know what, Mom? Funny you should ask. Yeah, this guy had this Mickey in his knapsack, and everybody was like hanging over by the playground equipment, and they were drinking. So there's it's those ways that you can start the conversation. And of course, once that conversation gets started, then you're proving to them by not freaking out that you don't want that brain to go off. You're proving to them that you can enter into conversations like this and that you're a calm, reasonable person. And again, you can show a little faith in them. Oh, so what did you do? How did you feel about that? Be curious, be open-minded. All of those things invite dialogue rather than lecturing and moralizing, which shuts down dialogue. So yeah, so I hope that helps.
Okay. What if when you ask them if they've been drinking, they simply blame their friends they told them to?
Yeah, well, kids, and not just kids, adults too. The concept of blaming is really an ego protecting mechanism to say, I'm not going to take responsibility. Other people take responsibility. And I think it's really important that from the youngest age, even, a preschooler, needs to understand that they are responsible for their choices. They're responsible for their actions. You know, if you spill a bit of your juice, you're responsible for bending down and wiping it up. Even if you bump the counter, you know. So that's a lesson about just accountability that should be happening pervasively as part of parenting all through the childhood years. Now, if you still got a kid who's blaming, you know, I would simply say, you are responsible for yourself. And nobody can make you drink just the same way as nobody can make you jump off a bridge or break into a car. That's a choice that you make for yourself. So I can understand that you might have felt some pressure, but pressure is something that we can counter. You're still responsible for your actions. And so let's help you with the pressure part and get into that problem-solving mode. But to say that they're not responsible, we still want them to face the consequences of the choices that they made. But again, it misses the mark if we don't go back and say, you know, the thing they made you do was to make you feel uncomfortable. So let's talk about social rejection. You know, if you can't stand up for what you know is right and good and for behaving in ways, and you can compare it to something else. You know, if everybody's bullying someone, does that feel like you have to bully them too? Or would you stand up and say, hey guys, don't bully this guy? You know, you want to have that kid that goes against the group norms, because the group norms are not always good. And so that's a really important piece, to be able to stand up and say the power of one, the power of one. So yeah, that's how I take that conversation. Yeah.
Okay. Heather wants to know if we should share stories about when we may have had a drink ourselves when we were underage.
Oh, it's a good question. You know, I never lie to children. I think omission can be appropriate. That kids don't need to know everything. I think to come across as human is fine, and we did make mistakes too. And I think that part is fine. I think it's when we romanticize it, glorify it, don't take away the teaching part of it, that it becomes a problem. You know, I certainly wouldn't want it to come across as, you know, I have different rules than you have, or I'm allowed to get away with this crap, but you can't. You know, I wouldn't want that to be the case. You know, if the moral of the story is, and I wish I didn't, or I was naive, or I hope you don't make the same mistakes I made, I think that's the part where you have the power of making it very teachable. But if otherwise you're just modeling that, hey, you know, I was bad and I came out okay, so I guess you can be bad too. Like, that's what they're going to deduce if you don't add your the other storyline. Yeah.
What are some logical consequences we can apply the next day, or do they have to be natural?
So when we talked about natural consequences are things that you don't have to create, but I think of them more as being the consequences of the laws of nature, hence natural, meaning, you know, if you drop a pea, you know, it falls because of something called gravity. You don't have to do anything. Gravity creates the causality, cause and effect is happening from the laws of nature. So logical consequences are more about the social laws of living. So I believe that a logical consequence comes from you know, losing a friend or being embarrassed, or like I said, if somebody posts on social and now something about you has been shared, that's not a natural consequence. That is a logical consequence because it's social in its nature. Natural consequences would be alcohol makes your stomach retch. So I think the logical part, it could be, you know, now I have to sit and talk to my parents. You know, I gave the suggestion of maybe they need to do some research on the developing brain and why we're so passionate about it. Or maybe you want to get them to do a little bit of research on other laws that are based on age, and why drinking is similar to laws such as, you know, driving cars or voting and what that's about. So, you know, maybe you just want to just sort of go about it kind of educationally. And we do this with bullying too. You know, with bullying, we say, you know, why don't you interview somebody who's been bullied and give us a report back on that. So something like that. So it certainly doesn't need, like, you don't need to be grounded. You know, it doesn't have to go that route. You know, now your kid might say, well, maybe I should miss the next party. And you might say, oh, okay, well, if you think that feels logical and fitting, that might kind of make them feel like that's what they need to forgive themselves, perhaps. But yeah, so I think those are some ideas that you could work with. Yeah.
Okay, Maria's daughter is 15, soon to be 16, and a few of her friends are 18 and 19. Should I discourage her from hanging out with them considering they have different social exposures?
Yeah. No, you know what? I mean, I got to tell you, I love intergenerational anything. I think there's all kinds of great things and that an 18, 19-year-old can share with a 15-year-old. I think a 15-year-old can teach all kinds of great things to an 8-year-old. It's why people love going to camp and you're like your counselor. And, you know, I lived in a multi-generational cottage, and because it was on a small river, you know, all the friends hung out with the older siblings and different age cousins, and everybody was included. And when company would come, everyone had to play capture the flag. It didn't matter how old you were. We did everything with different age groups, and you force people to be together in those cohorts. You know, there's all kinds of great opportunities that can happen. So I wouldn't just default to they would be a bad influence. I think because they're older and they're around other things. I would want real evidence that they're not being a good friend. I want real evidence that objectively that there's something that they need to be protected against or that you have concerns about. But I wouldn't just based on age. No, that's fine. Totally fine by me. Yeah.
One of my biggest concern is that we have friends who are letting their underage teens drink as long as it's at home. I'm not okay with this, but I am nervous to approach the topic and cause a fight amongst our friends.
Oh, there we go, people. This is a big one. And, you know, I've mentioned this on my other Family Talk. And again, I do have a series of videos on my YouTube channel, so check those out. But it does come up in for so many people. And here's what I want parents to understand. When you serve minors in your home, you are breaking the law. The fines are huge, and there is potential jail time. You're now looking after a minor who could also, in a state of intoxication, get into some kind of injury or what. You could have huge liability issues. I mean, just don't go there. But not only that, it's sending the wrong message. You know, that what we know is that if we hold our boundaries firmly, that it will constrain drinking behavior. So let me give you another example that might seem easier. Let's talk about curfew. If you say that curfew is 12 o'clock and your kid comes home at 12:30, yeah, you know what? They didn't make curfew. They're half an hour late. But if you say curfew's not working, they're not coming home and paying attention to curfew anyway. Look at they're half an hour late, and you say, fine, no curfew. You don't listen to me anyways. The kids are more likely to come home at 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Where if you say, hey, it's 12 o'clock. The rule is 12 o'clock. Well, they might come in 12:25, 12:35, whatever. Hey, it's 12 o'clock is our curfew. You're more likely to keep that child coming in closer to midnight. So if we want to keep our kids not drinking until the legal drinking age, then we need to hold that line. No, I'm sorry, you're a minor. We're a law-abiding family. We don't pick and choose which laws we decide are right for us. We are just law-abiding. If we want to change laws, then there's a particular route that you go to try to get the laws changed, and you can be a social activist for that. But right now, we're law-abiding, and so we hold that limit firm. So don't be condoning. Do not put yourself in a state of being a lawbreaker yourself and having to be responsible for kids who are intoxicated. Boy, that's high risk. So now, how do you talk about it? I think you say just exactly that. You say, I respectfully hold a different opinion. Right? We need to be able to have differences of opinions, and certainly in parenting, like that's why we have a lot of the mommy wars or whatever, the stay-at-home moms versus the working moms, and the Montessoris versus the Waldorfs, and I mean vaccination. Like there's a lot of things that we have differences of opinions on, and I think it's important that we show people that we can have a difference of opinion and still be friends. It's okay to disagree around important things. And so to say, hey, I just respectfully see this from a different perspective, actually. And I think that's all you need to say. If your child goes over to their house, you can say, listen, they allow drinking in their house, and so maybe you want to either find something else to do, or are you armed and prepared for how you're going to be able to say no tonight? Because just because they think it's okay, we don't. So I still hold you to the same expectation of not drinking while you're there. And then just, I think that's pretty, speaking from your own position and pretty judgment free. So try that. Yeah.
Okay. What if your child tells you that their friend has been drinking, your son or daughter chose not to?
Yes.
Should you tell their parents?
Oh, like the ratted out thing. Boy, that's very situational. My gut reaction would be, it would depend how much I knew the parent. It would be very situational. I'm going to err mostly on the side of no. And one of the reasons for that, and again, it really depends on if we're talking about, again, a one-off, or they were like, there was other trouble that was in the way. I do believe that it takes a village. However, I think it's easier to talk directly to kids. I don't know the other parents. I don't know how that's gonna land. So I'm very cautious about triangulation and stirring stuff up between people. So it's a hard one for me to give an absolute clear answer to. So maybe if I had like more specifics. I'm sorry that I don't have a great answer on that. I've had situations where I have mentioned it to parents. I've had situations where I haven't mentioned it to parents. And I'm just having a clear line trying to state what those deciding factors were, in my mind. But I'm always thinking about that. I guess if you just use, I love Barbara Coloroso, are we telling or are we tattling? Am I trying to get help for the kid, or am I trying to get the kid in trouble? It's all in my approach. It's in how the parents are going to handle it. Could I have intervened if I'd known something differently? How far from the incident to when I found out about it? So there's just a lot of stuff like that rumbling around in my brain. So sorry if that's not very crisp, but it's the best I got.
Okay, I caught my teen drinking, and my response was to yell and scream. I admit I lost my cool. Is it too late to rectify the situation now?
No.
Okay.
It's not. No, it's never. Listen, I think one of the greatest things that we can do to model to our kids is how to repair from a mistake ourselves. And so if you decided that yelling and losing your cool was a mistake, how great to be able to if you catch yourself right in the minute, you can say, you know what? I need a do-over. That was not cool. And really do a do-over. Leave the room, walk out of the house, and open the door and start all over again. Say, okay, from the top. Let me just like you hit like a little acting slate, take two in filming a movie. So you can do it immediately, or if it was like last week and say, you know what, I've been thinking a lot about how I like lost my cool on you, and I screamed when you came home drinking, and I'm not proud of that. That's not really the way that I want to be in my relationship with you, and so I'm apologizing. I think that was fear speaking. I think I was very reactive, and in hindsight, I could have handled that so many different ways. So I'm sorry. And I can do better. And what a beautiful thing for a kid to see, so that they know when they say, you know what, Mom, and I got really mad at you because you didn't pick me up from hockey, and I screamed at you. I'm sorry. I could have done better. I was just mad because I lost the game, and then our plan screwed up, and I took it personally, and I could do better. So that's good modeling. So absolutely, you can circle back. It's never too late. That was my fifth point, right? Bygones. It's never too late. Clean slate. On to the next thing. We can tidy up a mistake, and make good. And so good for you. Yeah.
Great. Along that same subject, can you provide some tips for us parents on how to stay calm in that heat of that moment when you catch the drinking?
I got a whole workshop coming up on emotional regulation. Well, I think part of it is to educate yourself on what is happening in your body, so that you aren't so distracted by the fact that like your fingertips can tingle, your stomach might retch, your muscles might clench. Like there's like a flooding of hormones that just take over. And so just to sit with that much bodily sensation could be overwhelming for a lot of people. And so learning this is just a chemical reaction. This is a physiology. I just sit with those feelings, just sit with those emotions, and to know that they will roll off just the same way that a craving rolls past or whatever. It's like a weather pattern. It's coming by, it's going to pass. Can I separate myself from it? And so that you are an observer of a situation that of an event that is happening in your body and brain, rather than it's you we have to separate it as subject object. And this is where I think that meditation is so very powerful, because it trains you to make that gap, to make that separation. And so, you know, when it comes to anger, I often just tell people, like, just think about it as being like, be curious about this state that you're in, and think of it as being like, you know, the international park, the international parks of emotions. So I was like, oh, I'm in the international park of anger right now. Huh, this is curious. Let's look at the wildlife in the park of anger. But it separates you. It's a place, and I'm just going to go find out about it. It's not me out of control. So it's a big topic. I don't know if I'm being very helpful, but, and of course, in all those things, breathing, 10 deep breaths, try to get the heart rate down. Anything, like I said, if you can just get yourself to just not talk, because what's going to come out, you are going to regret. So mostly, even just saying, I'm so upset right now that I cannot even speak, is fine, you know, and say, I need to exit myself from this situation. Even that is still modeling how to deal with healthy anger. Yeah. So I have time for one more, sure.
What about the fact, is there any negative impression that we're giving our kids if we drink heavily on the weekends, or we have parties with friends where we are drinking? Is there any negative effect to our underage kids seeing that?
Yeah, I think that we need to model responsible drinking. So the fact that you're using the adjective heavy drinking tells me that you're feeling it's tipped into irresponsible drinking. And I may be putting words in your mouth, but kids will come to see those behaviors, and they're more likely to mimic those behavior, because that will become their norm. So the same way as if every weekend you went bicycle riding, or if every morning you got up at 7 and went to the gym and had a protein shake, you're more likely to have a kid who's going to think, well, that's how people live. They get up in the morning, they go to the gym, and they have their protein shake. And same thing, if they, hey, every day you get home from work, you have a glass of wine at 5 o'clock, and you party hard on the weekends, they're going to think that's part of growing up. And they're more likely to be impressed and model and repeat. So that's the fear. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'll drink as a minor, but when they become legal age, repeating those family patterns, more likely. Yeah. So we always want to show responsible drinking to our kids. Yeah.
There's more.
Oh, there's more, but you know, we've got to let people go raise their kids. If you held off on tuck in, or what, maybe you got the kids tucked in before you even joined us, but I just want to recap for people. There is a survey. I really hope that you'll participate. The first 100 people to follow that survey link that that Catherine's put up in the comment field, your name will be entered into a draw for a $250 Visa gift card. Anyone who's left a comment or a question, your name will be entered into a draw, and we'll be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card. So
some people are having some issues clicking on the link. Let them know it'll be in the top.
Oh, some people are having trouble with the link. So we will make sure that the link works. Look up in the top part. So besides being embedded in the comment field, it will also be across the banner. We have to wait until we wrap up the wrap up the talk, before we can add that. So just stay put. And once I actually hit our goodbyes here, I will be jumping on, and I'll try to answer some more questions as well. Please share this. It'll stay archived if you want to point other people to it. And as I said, this was the third in a series, which means we have another one coming up. We'll have a new topic, and that will be on getting the conversation started, and it'll be November 1st. So thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure. I'm excited to get on and jump on and read some more of your questions, but I have been seeing your names go by, and I'm really pleased that you came and joined me. So thank you. Hope it was helpful.